Namaskar and welcome. So great to be here with all of you at the One Heart, One Earth Global Awakening of November 2020. All right, such a great event and a true pleasure to be here with all of you to share some ideas and to grow together. The theme of this awakening is remember who you are. And that's what we're going to explore. But before we begin that exploration, maybe I should say a little bit about who am I and what we're going to do here together. My name is Satyam. I run Renaissance Yoga in Maryland, state of Maryland. I've been on the path of yoga for 3 decades now, and spent quite a bit of time living in India in various ashrams. And really the main ethos of my experience has been trying to inculcate yogic ideals into daily living. The food we eat, the thoughts we think, meditation, and all different types of aspects. That the theme of the day or the flow of the day is based in yogic teachings and yogic practices. I can be reached renaissanceyoga.com or on various social medias under that same name of Renaissance Yoga. And what we want to explore here today is what yoga has to offer in the realm of remembering who we are. A lot of times when we think about yoga, we think about bending the back or stretching and those physical postures. And while they have their place, that is by no means the totality of yoga, nor is it necessarily one of the themes. You know, something we hear all the time is, oh, I'm too stiff to do yoga, or I'm too stiff so I can't do yoga. And it's really not about that. The first yogic question was, who am I? That initial inquiry started the entire practice of yoga. And so that's why the holistic approach to yoga is such a unique fit for our theme of remembering who you are. Because how can you remember who you are if you haven't first discovered who you are, or who am I? That initial existential query of yoga. And those yogis posed that question 15,000 years ago when the Sangha mantra was first introduced. And that mantra was, let us come together, let us sing together, let us meditate like sages of the past. It was a collective chant for the spirit of meditation and self-inquiry of who am I and what is my relationship with this entire cosmos that's all around me. And that was the initial quest that the yogis wanted to solve. That was it. It had nothing to do with touching the toes or holding a headstand. Those things were not even in the realm yet, weren't part of the game. It was that one query, who am I? And their initial approach was to do meditation, to find out who I am. And they decided that the meditation needed, although meditation was so helpful for that, it needed an entire system of living to come to that answer. And so that's what they did. They, step by step, they created a system, what we now call Ashtanga Yoga. Ashta in Sanskrit means 8. Ang in Sanskrit means limb. And yoga actually means union. So it's the 8 limbs of yoga, or the 8 limbs of how to find union between the unit and the cosmic. And that was the really essence and beginnings and systematized of the yogic pursuit. And so that's what they used to come up with that answer. And so I'm just going to go through some of those tenets and see where that takes us. And hopefully we can get a little closer to finding that answer out. So Ashtanga Yoga has 8 parts, okay? Jama and Niyama. Those are the first 2 principles. And they're composed of 10 subsets. And rather than exploring each of those subsets, these were yogic morality, codes by which to adhere to in our day-to-day life that made the mind strong and create people of character. Some of those tenets of Jama and Niyama are, for example, ahimsa, not to inflict harm on others, and asteya, and not only not to steal, but don't even let the idea of stealing to arise in the mind, and tapa, to sacrifice for a greater ideal, and satya, which is truthfulness, benevolent truthfulness. And actually, I think I introduced Renaissance Yoga, but I didn't introduce my name, which is Satyam, which is a derivation of Satya, means benevolent truthfulness, to speak towards the welfare of others. So those first 2 steps of Jama and Niyama compose 10 basic principles for daily living. Then the 3rd step of Ashtanga Yoga is asana. Now, the original asana meant seat, to sit in meditation. But the yogis had trouble sitting in meditation and holding their concentration for that long. Their knees hurt, their joints hurt, their back hurt, the mind was wavering. So they came up with this system of yoga postures, which today we call asanas. And in the West, or in lots of places, that's what we think of as being yoga, of going in and doing all those physical postures and then maybe doing a little meditation, and that's the entire thing. But actually, it's just one little part. It's one component of these 8 limbs. So you can say it's 12.5%, maybe. But nonetheless, it is an important step. And by doing these practices, which are glandularly based, which makes it a mind-body experience, one can make a healthy body by which to meditate with, and also balance out the glandular systems, which creates a mind that is interested in going within. It helps introvert the mind and prepare the mind for meditation. That's what all those yoga postures are for. They're a tool. They're not an endpoint, but a medium for getting your vehicle going in the right direction. And then the 4th limb is pranayama, which is, if you've seen this, it's a very specific type of breathing exercise that helps to calm the mind. Yeah. And then the 5th step is known as pratyahara, withdrawal of mind from the external world, right? We have to live in this world. We have to be practical. We have to do all these things. Go to work, take care of the family, be part of our communities, but also we have to find scope to take the mind inside, to delve within. And that's part of the yogic journey. So to withdraw the mind from external longing and desire and attraction, and also move towards that internal pursuit. That's known as pratyahara. That's the fifth step. So thus far we've got jhana and niyama. That's the first two, the codes of morality. Third step is yoga asanas, the physical postures. Then the fourth step is pranayama, which is a meditative breathing technique to calm the mind. And then the fifth step is pratyahara, which is withdrawal of mind from external pabulum. And then sixth step is dharana, which means concentration, to learn to focus the mind on a particular point and develop sufficient psychic momentum to pierce through and to cross the next threshold of one's meditation practice. And then dhyan, which is the seventh step, which is known as sustained meditation, where the mind just basks in that equanimity. And then the eighth step is samadhi, that grand realization. So this is a big journey, right, to do these 8 steps. But it's these types of practices, as we inculcate these in our day, that we advance on the path of yoga, and we come to that query, and not just a query, but the answer of who am I? Now, there was a there are 2 main epics of yoga and of India. One is known as Ramayana, and one is known as the Mahabharata. And that may seem, these may be new terms for you, but the Mahabharata, Maha means great, Bharat means India. So it was the formation of a great India. It's a big epic. They say it's the longest book of the world, of 25,000 sutras. Huge tale. And one little section within that Mahabharata is a section known as the Bhagavad Gita, which may be a term you've heard before. So the Bhagavad Gita is a little 2-chapter section of this massive epic known as the Mahabharata. And I have a little story here about one aspect of the Bhagavad Gita. You see, there's a great warrior by the name of Arjuna, and he and his brothers were about to embark in a great battle. It was the battle for Dharma, the battle for righteousness, for standing up for what was true and integral in life. And just when they were about to embark on that battle, the lines were drawn, and each army, there was the Pandavas, which is the side that Arjuna fought for, and his brothers, and the Kauravas, which was the enemy forces. And Arjuna's chariot driver or charioteer was Krishna, the great yogi. And everyone on the Pandava side, everyone on Arjuna's side was very happy that they had Arjuna, because he was a great warrior. He was so good with the bow and arrow. And so they were very pleased about that. And so the battle began, and Arjuna was not up to the mark. He was not doing what he needed to. He didn't have the gusto and gumption to pursue and engage in this battle. And at some point, he became so worried that he said, I can't fight. I can't do it. I can't live up to my Dharma of being a warrior. And the whole time Krishna was saying, come on, do it. You can do it. Let's go. And finally, Arjuna said, what can I do? I can't fight against this other army. Why? I can't do that. Actually, on the other side of the army was his grandfather and uncles and some of his family members, not his brothers, but other distant relations. And so he didn't want to fight against them. But Krishna said, no, you've got to fight. And they began this big dialogue, which is really what the Bhagavad Gita is. It's this talk between Krishna and Arjuna of Arjuna, who does not have the nerve to live up to what he's supposed to do, and Krishna trying to coax and teach him how to do it. And they come to a point where Arjuna is just sinking down deeper. His knees are buckling. He can't rise to the occasion. And then Krishna guides him. Arjuna, focus your mind on the Trikuti point, on this one spot. You focus right there. And then Krishna, using his great yogic powers, unleashed his Vishvarup. Vishva means universal and Rupa means form. The universal form of realization was bestowed upon Arjuna. And Arjuna became ensconced. His mind became fully ensconced in the ideal of oneness. That wherever he saw just connection and consciousness and oneness amongst every living organism and every non-living object. That this whole presentation of manifestation around them was just one expression of cosmic mind. And he drifted in that bliss endlessly. And then Krishna took him out of it. And Krishna said, look, you've experienced that this world is all one. We're all part of the same creation. And by understanding that, you have to live in this world and fulfill your Dharma. And take the ideation that you're part of the greater cosmos and you're interacting with other entities that are part of the same one expression. And by that way, Arjuna got his courage to live up to who he was supposed to be in this world. He understood his Dharma, that his duty was to carry out and engage in this battle for righteousness. And after that, he was able to gain much success and indeed establish Dharma on this earth. As human beings, as you and I experience in life, sometimes we incur self-doubt. Sometimes we incur weakness. Sometimes we incur shyness or unwillingness to put one foot in front of the other or to go back to old pathways. But when we feel rooted in some greater oneness or some greater whole or something greater than our unit petty selves, then that gives us the courage, the tenacity to march ahead, to know that we will not lose ourselves, but rather gain ourselves. We will realize who I am, who we are. And so that has a tremendous value. And up to this point, we're talking quite theoretically. But think of it this way. When a dog goes out to bark, a lot of times the dog's strength comes from looking back at the master, that the master is supporting the dog. You may have seen that, how the dog looks to make sure, right? Dogs do that. And like when players go out to play a game, they look during the times of tenseness, when the score is tied in the final seconds, they look to their coach for guidance. Now, the coach may not come out on the field, but the coach gives them the mental sustenance for them to fulfill their Dharma as players. Similarly, for us as human beings, when we remember our Dharma and we can call upon that within, then we can step up to whatever occasion that we have to meet in life. And this is really the way of the yogi, to establish our dharmic ideal in this world. Dharma means fulfilling what we were born to do. And humans were born to become great. They say that there's 4 aspects of Bhagavad Dharma. First one, Vistara, V-I-S-T-A-R-A, means expansion, for us all to expand. And second one, Rasa, flow, to have proper mental flow. And third one, Seva, to serve all those around us. And when we do those 3, we get Tatstiti, which is grand realization. And you'll find that along in the yogic lifestyle. They come up with lots of lists. And there's a lot of overlap between the lists, because we need a lot of reminders for us to remember who we are. And so there's the 8-fold path of yoga. There's these 4 qualities of Dharma. And the last one is always grand realization. In the 8 steps of yoga, it's known as samadhi, ensconcing the mind in the supreme. And then Tatstiti is grand realization by following those 3 aspects of Bhagavata Dharma. And so that's what we are trying to do on the path of yoga. And we go in small steps. We think big, we follow an ideal, and we refine little by little. But it all begins with the inquiry of who am I? And then following the theme of remembering who I am. At one point in that story, Arjuna knew who he was. But then when he came up for the great battle, he forgot who he was and he lost all his courage. The human mind is fickle. It comes and goes, it waxes, it wanes, and we forget who we are, what true strength we really have. And so yoga is the path of proceeding on and also constantly reminding ourselves of who we are, because we forget. We think we're a salesman. We think we're a store owner or a shopkeeper or a student or a car owner or whatever we think we are. We identify with all our relative roles that we play in this world, a father, a husband. And while we are those things, that's not our true existential value. Our true existential value is that we're children in this great cosmos who've been born to fulfill their Dharma. And everybody's got different roles. We all don't need to be shopkeepers. We all don't need to be car salesmen. We all don't need to be farmers. Everybody has their little unique role to play. But human Dharma is one. Beneath all those labels that we accrue during the course of our lifetimes is that one central truth, that we're part of this greater cosmic whole. And that's where human unity comes into play. The more we remember that, the better off we are, individually and collectively. And the less we remember it, we get caught up in our petty roles and we forget the greater truth of who we are. So the yogis do meditation to remind ourselves who we are. The word for memory in Sanskrit is smriti. And the word for permanent memory, where the mind is fixed and it always remembers its essential nature, is known as dhruva smriti, or fixed memory. And that's when the person has reached such a point where, whether their eyes are open or closed, they always remember their essential nature in this world. Even during the sleep, they do their meditation while sleeping. So we've talked a lot here about theory, about the greater question. And now we should engage in a little practice, huh? That practice of remembering and realizing and reinforcing this greater truth of who we are in this universe. So let's do this together here. Come on into a seated position and remember that fifth step of Ashtanga Yoga. You might not, which is okay. There's a lot of rules and codes of yoga. It's hard to remember them all. But if we remember the basic idea of them, that's enough. That fifth step is known as Pratyahara Yoga, where we withdraw the mind from external world and seek that light within. So close the eyes. And just cultivate that yearning. Of going beyond our little petty selves, right? Connecting our breath with something greater. So come into a comfortable two-step breathing pattern, drawing the breath in and exhale out. You were just taking a few series of short respirations to calm the mind, to get the mind focused inwards. Find a sense of serenity, a sense of peace. This will be a two-step meditative endeavor. At the beginning, we're just going to breathe, and we're going to use our intuition to align our unit breath with that greater cosmic breath. Whatever that means to you, however you feel that we have our unit self and we're in part of a greater cosmic system. And how to align our unit vibration, our unit being with something greater. You can think of it as one wave in a great ocean, and you can either flow with that ocean or you can be a renegade wave and just be your own little wave. Well, we're going to try and be one of those waves that becomes part of the great ocean that moves in concert with the whole oceanic force. We're going to do it with the whole cosmic force. So here we go. Just breathe and try and link up with that greater cosmic breath. There's a few ways to help think about this. One is on the inhale, come all the way into your essential nature, all the way to the center point of mind. And on the exhale, just swim in that great ocean of consciousness. Let the mind expand. Thinking of yourself as becoming more free, more at peace with each and every respiration. And then just bask in that sense of tranquility, that sense of ease, that gentle linking and beatitude. So now we've set the stage. We've done the groundwork to go a little bit deeper in our meditation. And this is when the time of memory, or smriti, or recollection comes into play. And we're going to do that using a mantra. And each one of you are going to come up with your own mantra. If you have a mantra in the past that you've used for meditation, then by all means use that. But here in this session, for those who don't have one, we're going to contemplate what ideal we wish to achieve. What is our Dharma in this world, or of our nature? Is it I am peace, I am love, I am light, I am one with this whole universe? Whatever phrase speaks to you that carries a high ideal, that allows you to go beyond the unit self, that allows you to remember your inherent nature, your Dharma as a human being. That phrase you can use. Maybe one of the ones I set forth as examples, or any other phrase that speaks to you, that allows you to take your unit self and link it with something greater. And that'll be our meditation, just to recite that idea. And not just recite it with our tongue or with our mental tongue, but deep inside the mind, to ensconce the mind, to remember that we've come here not just to run around in the external world, but to realize something great and meaningful, to realize our Dharma, our inherent connection and linking with this entire cosmos. So inside the mind and just breathing easy, start to recite your mantra. We'll go for a few minutes here. Let's go another 5 or 10 breaths, making each one perfect, reciting that mantra inside the mind, coming to that realization. Then on the next inhale, all together here, we gently draw those palms together, thumbs touching to the Trikuti point. And that's the doorstep to the mind, going back towards the Ajna chakra. In there we honor our inner self, our true nature, our Dharma, and drawing those hands down into heart center, making that link with our yearning of the heart to do something great. And to touch each and every human heart. And internally we say, Namaskar. And slowly you may start to open the eyes if you like, or keep them closed if that's more comfortable. So, as we realize who we are and realize our essential Dharma in this world, to make good on that connection with all of humanity and the greater cosmos around us, and not just act like that rogue wave. That it's not an easy boat to paddle by oneself. It needs collectivity. It needs satsang, good company. Good company helps us remember to keep us on that journey. Right? When the great warrior Arjuna was on the battlefield, he needed Krishna to remind him. He needed his coach, his guru, his teacher. And humanity, although our meditation's an individual journey, it's also part of a greater collective journey of living with one another. And in that regard, I'm just going to leave you with one little story along that line. One day there was a young man walking up the beach, and he was just walking along, so that on his right side was the vast ocean, and then the left side was the land and the sand and up to the hillsides. And he was looking up, and there was miles and miles of beach and shore up ahead of him. He's like, how great to be walking this earth on this lonely beach, just me and the great ocean and this spectacular sky, and to watch the waves fall up and rush up onto the shore. And just when he thought that he was the only one there, he saw one figurine out in the distance. And he was doing a dance of kind of picking something and throwing, and leaning and picking and throwing. And as he got closer, as the young man approached, he realized it was this old guy. And the guy was just leaning down onto the sand and then tossing out to sea. And the young man came upon him, and he was stunned to see what the old guy was doing. He's like, "What are you doing? This is madness. You'll never get success." And the old man was unperturbed, just picking and throwing, and picking and throwing. And what was happening was that the great ocean was washing up all this starfish onto the sea, where the sun was caking them unto their death on hot, dry sand. But that old man was just picking up one starfish at a time and throwing it back into sea. And the young man said to him, "Don't you realize the odds are against you? The ocean, the shoreline is so long, so vast, and there's hundreds of starfish being washed up, and you're just picking one up at a time and saving one at a time and throwing it out into the ocean." And the old man just looked over at him and said, "That may well be, but you know what? I just saved another one." And then thereafter, there was not just one figurine, but 2 figurines that morning, old and young, picking up a starfish and throwing it out, and never getting tired, rather gaining more sustenance with each one they saved. And that's the beauty of collectivity, that we together work together and overcome the odds and do something great in this world. It can't be done individually. It needs collective effort. So we should remember who we are. We should remember those around us are also part of our whole essential Dharma. They're also part of this greater cosmos. And we should unitedly march together, always reminding, always singing the song of unity and unison and togetherness, remembering that Sangha Chatwa mantra, let us come together, let us sing together, which is that initial spirit and inquiry of yoga that started the whole journey. And remembering that, remembering who we are, what we are, and how we can move ahead. I pay my salutations to all of you and wishing you success and great joy on this journey. And I look forward to crossing paths with you again soon. Namaskar.
What is life? What is death? What am I doing here? Who am I without?
I sat up in bed and I realized in that instant of sitting up in bed and breathing, I went, "Ugh," like this breathing in air. I realized I hadn't been breathing the whole time that I would have been in this experience. And I made that sound so loudly, it woke Tony up. And he sat up and said, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" And I said, "I don't know, but my life will never be the same again."
It got bigger and bigger and brighter until it was filling in every direction, and it was made up of lights and flames and white, and just got closer and closer, and then all of a sudden it hit me.
But suddenly there was like this kind of like this portal just opened, that there I could just sense that I have access to all the information in the universe.
So I had like this very deep connection with my team, offered up this prayer, and within like 2 months, my entire life fell apart. So, spirit doesn't mess around. And when you ask, it is always given.
And then in that dream, I understood that what I am is mirrored throughout the whole cosmos, that I'm part of all of that. I am literally part of everything in the cosmos, and all of that is part of me. It can be seen by me through these mirrors. And so I felt like this web of life, you cannot unplug from it. You cannot get out of it. No matter what you do, you are in it, and it is glorious. And all of that energy and potential and creativity and possibility is ours. And that all of the universe is reflected in our very being, in our very selves. And everything that we are is reflected throughout the whole universe too. There is no separateness. There is no such thing as anything being separate.
2020, what a ride. My life is 100,000 times better than I ever imagined it could be.